In this lesson, we're going to learn how to create basic hardware like bolts and screws. Alright, so we've created this hole, and there's supposed to be a piece of hardware that's going to fit into this. Now, whenever you are creating hardware, there's one question that you need to ask. Are we seeing the entire piece of hardware? Are we going to be seeing the entire bolt as if it goes through a hole and it meets on the other side, where we would have something like a bolt that goes through here, and then we have the nut, and then you might have the end of the bolt kind of sticking out that's been threaded through the nut. How much detail do we need to create is what I'm asking. So, for example, this is going to be where a screw is being placed. And so we don't necessarily need the shaft of the screw itself. All we need is the screw head. So to get started with this, we need to create some geometry that's going to be very easy on our topology. So one way of creating a bolt or a screw like this is you could come in with a sphere, and in your front view you can go ahead and drag that out, and you could start to reduce the topology using the segments here. So if we drop this down, we go to something like I don't know, maybe 12 segments or so. We drop this down, but one thing that you're going to notice with the sphere is that the topology really isn't there. It's not that great. And so what we would want to do is we might want to use a box instead. Now you might be thinking, okay, how are we going to use a box? Because the box isn't going to be around. And the answer to that is we're going to use a box, but we're also going to create or use a modifier called spherify, which will give us that sphere type shape. So let's go ahead and take a look at how that works and the reason that we might want to do it this way. So let's delete that sphere, and instead let's go ahead and create a box. So in our front view, I'm just going to come right in here. I'm just going to left click and drag out a box. And you know, to be honest, I'm going to go ahead and right click to end that. Let's use the cube creation method, and then we're going to left click and drag that out, and that's going to create a box just like it would a sphere. So now you'll see that this box is perfectly cubed here, and now what we want to do is we want to pull this out to where we can see it, and I'm going to right click and convert it to editable poly. Let's go to polygon mode by hitting 4 on the keyboard, and then I'm going to get rid of the polygon that's on the back side. So hit F3, select that back polygon on the box and delete. And then we'll select the polygon along the front. I'm going to push that in just a little bit. So with this, let's go ahead and use our modifier, and let's go to spherify. So we can hit S on our keyboard a few times, and it should go down in our list, and we should see spherify. So let's go ahead and find that here. There it is. There's spherify, and you'll see that it has gone ahead and spherified our object, but something's wrong here. It doesn't look that great. Okay, something's happened. So what do we do with this? Why hasn't it spherified it? Well, it doesn't have enough geometry to actually spherify this box. So let's delete spherify, and let's apply our turbo smooth. Now turbo smooth gives us the same type of result. It's spherified this, and it actually looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and bump up our iterations another time there. We're getting a really good result, so why don't we just use this instead? Well, let's go ahead and go to edge mode and double click on that edge there, and that should select that loop. And let's make this a little bit flatter, and then also let's scale that out in the X and Z. Then let's take a look at our turbo smooth. See, this gives us a nice looking result here. And now all I need is the topology for my Phillips screw head here. So I need to create those topology or those polygons there. So let's bump up our iterations one more time. And in here, if I go to my front view, I should be able to select some polygons to create that geometry. So to do this, I'm going to go to polygon mode, hit 4 on the keyboard under edit geometry, and let's show end result. Now you'll notice here that whenever I go to polygon mode, it doesn't let me select any of these individual polygons. Well, what I can do from here is I can actually collapse this down. Now, I'm not sure exactly, so I'm kind of looking at this from an experimentation sort of view. So let's say that I don't want to get rid of my edit poly. Okay, I'm happy with the way that looks so far. The turbo smooth is working out well, but I'm just kind of trying something out. So instead of collapsing this down to editable poly again, let's just add our edit poly modifier. Let's drag that up above our turbo smooth, and then now I can go to polygon mode and select those polygons. So let's select these, and then we'll come across here and we'll select these right here. So I've got that geometry selected. Looks good. Let's go up one more on each side. That should give us plenty of room there. And then I can take this and I can inset it just a little bit to create a little bit of a rim there. And then with that, I'm going to extrude that in. So we'll do something kind of like this. And we'll push that back. So I can push that all the way in like this. Or what I can do is I can push it in a little bit. And by pushing it in just a little bit and then hitting this add, I've created a control loop that I'm going to need later on. So now that you start to create objects and you start getting the hang of working with control loops, you'll start to recognize where they need to be to create sharp edges. So using that extrude and then hitting that plus sign to append that and then apply another extrude creates a segment. So I can bump this down a little bit further and go down to where I need to be, and then I'll hit plus one more time, and then I'll bring that back close to that edge. So I've created two control loops without using the Swift Loop tool. So now let's hit OK on that, and I'm going to take this topology of these polygons that I have here and I'm going to flatten those out. So let's go down to Make Planar, and let's flatten those out in the Z direction. Now once that's flattened out, let's grab our Move tool and pull that back in the Y a little bit. And there we go. So nice and flat there. Now, looking at this, whenever I hit that append on my extrude, notice that it's kind of rounded out. And that's not going to look really good down on the inside here. I want that loop to be very close right down here on the inside. So what I can do is I can just simply extrude again one more time, and then I'll go to Edge mode, double click on that loop, hit Control Backspace, and I've gotten rid of that. And then now I can hit 4 on the keyboard to go to my polygon mode and hit Grow, and then I can move that with its control loop anywhere that I want and give it any depth for the bolt or the screw. So now that that's been finished, okay, that's ready to go. Okay, and now all I have to do is apply a turbo smooth to this, and we have our bolt head. So I'm going to apply another turbo smooth, and then let's just show isoline display, and then let's deselect that. And we've got a nice high poly bolt head here. It's got nice details on it. Everything's looking pretty good. We can bump up the iterations, make that a little bit smoother. Okay, and what we've done there with this bolt head is we've used a procedural modeling method. So we talked about how that works in the last level. So if you're unfamiliar with that and you want a little bit more practice on how to do this, you can go back and take a look at that lesson in the last level. So now let's go ahead and let's scale this up, and let's get that to fit in this area, and I'm going to push that in. So all I really need is the screw head itself. I don't need all of that extra geometry that's going to be hidden anyway. So if you can help it, don't create that stuff. Okay. So now let's say that I wanted to add a little bit more detail to this screw head. So I have my turbo smooth applied. Let's go back down to editable poly. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go to Edge mode, hit 2 on the keyboard, and I'm going to double click on, or I'm sorry, let's hit polygon mode. I'm going to double click on this loop, or select that polygon, hold shift, and select the next polygon in line. That should select that entire loop. And let's use bevel. And I'm going to bevel this inward. So take that down, and then take my outline amount down to kind of squeeze that. And that creates a nice little detail in that screw head there. So hit OK. And we have show end result on so we can see exactly what that's going to look like. And nice little detail. Okay, this kind of stuff, this kind of detail is exactly what you want to see in your high poly models. Let's change its color to black and then apply the material to stay consistent. And there we go. So we've created our first piece of hardware, and we can reuse this in other pieces. So, you know, we can just call this screw head underscore Phillips. Okay. And there we go. So now we'll need that on the other side as well. So with this object, we can just simply hit mirror. We want to make it a copy. Actually, we want to make it an instance, because if we change one, we want it to change all of those. And let's hit F3. And actually, let's do hit our Y. I can't hit F3 because this mirror options are open, and I can't move around. So I'm just going to hit OK. Let's hit F3 and make sure that that's mirrored properly. The Y, it was correct. And then we'll put that into position. So put that onto the other side. And you should have a little bit of a gap between your hardware and the machete handle here. Now the final thing that I want to do in this lesson is I want to finalize this handle here. So I was looking at these edges on the handle, and I didn't really care much for the creases that I get right here. So I'm going to double click on those and hit Control Backspace. I'm going to do that on the top and the bottom. Let's show end results so we can see what this is doing. And I really like the look of that smooth transition here. Now one thing that I don't like, again, is like these tight edges right here. So I'm going to select that edge and this edge, and actually it's this edge above that, because that should go all the way around. Let's hit Control Backspace, and again that's going to smooth that out. Let's do the same thing across the top. Double click here, and let's make sure that we get the right one. It should go all the way around. So Control Backspace, and then now what I want to do is change the shape on the end a little bit. So I'm going to go to vertex mode. I'm going to select these pieces and just these corners, and I'm going to scale those in. Now whenever I scale those in, it's going to change that shape, but it's also going to make the detail look a little sharper in those areas. So I'm going to take these, I'm just going to push these in a little bit closer to one another. Okay, and let's just push that in there, and then I'm going to take this set of vertices and I'm just going to move those straight up, and it should kind of create a little bit of a point across the top here. So nice smooth transition. Let's do the same thing here along the bottom. Select all of those. Let's scale those in toward one another, and then I'm going to take the ones here in the middle and move those down, and take all of those and pull those down a little bit, just like so. And then we also want to take these vertices and just scale those in a little bit. Okay, let's make sure that those are the only ones we have selected. Let's grab that one there. Okay, and then now we just want to do one final once over on the handle here and make sure that we have a nice even shape. I like the shape that we have so far here. Looking right here, I've got a little bit of an odd shape, so I'm going to take this set of vertices right here. I'm going to select those. I'm going to pull those in a little bit, but before I do that, I know that that's right on this detail right here, and I don't want that to move. So let's go to our front view. Let's hold down Alt and deselect those vertices, and that should deselect on the other side as well. Now in our top view, hitting T, let's scale that down to where we get a nice smooth transition here. Let's turn off our snap, and let's get that to kind of smoothly go into the rest of that detail. Let's select this, and let's scale that down some, and there we go. That's that slope that I was looking for. So nice detail. We've kind of softened up the handle. It makes it a little bit easier to look at. It seems like we can hold that a little bit easier. and looks very comfortable. Alright, so now that we've finished out the handle, now we want to start looking at the actual blade topology. And we're going to take a look at how we can create just kind of a previs object just to get the shape down. And then after that, we'll go in and we'll actually start to create that actual blade. So I'll see you in the next lesson.